Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Sporting 160 in English. This one will be podcast number 36. And today we have a great panel. So let me start by introducing our guest today, Kevin Fernandes, all the way from the UK. How you doing, Kevin?
All good. Sporting has been hitting a few problems recently. A lot of drama once again. But yeah, all good here. Looking forward to the game against Sporting News.
Yeah, me too. And another another member of our panel from also from the UK, Patrick. How you doing, Patrick?
Yeah, I'm good. Sporting aren't, but yeah, I am. So yeah, we'll talk more about that wherever sporting's concerned.
And from Philadelphia, USA, our friend Chris. Chris, how you doing, Chris?
Doing all right. Looking forward to it. It's been about a week and a half since the last pod, so we got a lot to catch up on. It's been a wild week.
Indeed. So let's begin with the Villareal Sporting, which that game ended up in a tie 1-1. And because of that result, we were eliminated. And the starting lineup for Sporting was Salah goalie. We had Coates, Thiago Ilori, Christian Borja. Then we had Stefano Hitowski, Bruno Fernandes, Gudelci, Weddle, Jefferson, Bas Dost, and Diaby. So, Patrick, I'm going to let you go first. What do you think about the game?
Um, in terms of performance and what you can expect, I think we played pretty well. For large periods of that game, we got the goal that we wanted, which we needed, in the first half through Bruno Fernandes, and I think it was deserved. We played well up until that point, and we really we went there with a game plan and we were executing it pretty well. But obviously, in the second half, the game turned on its head from what was, a terrible performance by the referees. The officiating was very poor. There was fouls on Villareal's side that should have been given and even punished further with cards that weren't. Whereas on the other hand, Sporting simply were getting the opposite end of that luck. We got the cards in, and soon enough we saw the situation that we had with Jefferson, which was him getting two bookings. The second one definitely, it just seemed like a normal something that happens after a challenge. Jefferson was challenged, and if anything, the foul should have been given to Sporting's, but Jefferson lands on the Villareal player, and the referee sees it another way, which was utterly bizarre. So we lose a player there, which, in my opinion, and perhaps in the opinion of everyone, we shouldn't have. And the game changes from there. The game plan really becomes compromised, and Sporting found it more difficult from then on. They got their ball players into the game. Villareal did, with the likes of Cazorla and Ibora, and it just became more and more difficult for Sporting to chase Villareal and shut down the avenues for passing. We didn't help ourselves either. We stuck with Bastos up top, which, as we all know, he's a fantastic goal scorer, but he's not the type of striker that's going to close. He's going to close defenders down and run up and down the pitch, like we see many pressing forwards nowadays, like Diego Costa and whatnot. Tiquinho Soares at Porto is a good example for people to watch Portuguese league. He's not that kind of industrious striker. So rather than playing with 10 men, to me, it felt like Sporting were actually playing with 9 men. So that was Kaiser's fault there. And you just wonder, don't you, whether had Kaiser taken off perhaps Dost in retaliation of that red card and decided to prioritise shape, perhaps get a runner on like Rafinha on the wings, keep the midfield compact and the defence the same, perhaps we could have come away with a different kind of result and maybe scored on the counter and killed the game off in a different way. But we didn't do that. And in my opinion, we paid the price for it. So if we're to look for points to blame in this game, I think obviously we were ultimately done by the poor refereeing that was on show, which took us down to 10 men, but also we didn't react as well as we could have to the red card and suffered as a consequence. So decent performance, decent effort, but obviously things could have gone a lot better than they did.
Well, well said. Well said. I agree with most of what you said. Kevin, why don't you go next?
Can't really say much after Jefferson's red card, which is completely his fault, really. You can blame the referee, but Jefferson did what he did. And Kaiser, from the start, he did some questionable decisions on his half. I mean, keeping Diaby in when Rafinha is clearly a better creative threat is probably not the best decision. But I can see why I did it for the counter-attack. But then keeping Bas Dost when we weren't really getting the ball to him wasn't really right. And it took until the 83rd minute or the 73rd minute for Felipe to come in. So some questions have to be asked of Kaiser. Jefferson shouldn't really have started the game with Pinto on the bench. If he really needed to stick to the three at the back, could have had Coates, Lori and Pinto with Borja in his natural position. But yeah, it is what it is. What we can say was that the midfield had a decent game. They held it together. And 1-1 was a good result in the end, but we needed to push nearer to the end because it's a Europa League tie. So leaving the substitutions until the 73rd minute, where we really need to push forward, and leaving one just not done when we have 10 men and we know that players will be tired, just didn't seem like the right decision.
Agreed, totally agreed, and it's been one big problem with Kaiser. It's with the substitutions being so late. I don't know why. When you allow 3 substitution, and recently they've been talking about maybe 4 in the future. But Sporting with Kaiser chooses not to do any subs, or at least he does it very late. So now, Chris, all the way from Philly, what do you think? Tell me.
Well, I mean, obviously, I definitely thought that Villareal dominated us. They obviously created more chances. And I think that if it wasn't for Salan, who had another great performance, stood on his head in goal there a bit, it could have been worse. But as far as the game plan and how things went, especially in the first half, I don't know if we really deserved that goal, but it came right at that killer time right before halftime. And I mean, I didn't think the first half was fantastic, but situationally, we didn't concede. We had decent spells throughout it, and then to get that goal right before half, I really thought it was going to energize us to stick another goal in the second half. And then if we would have scored that second goal, they would have been in big trouble because then we would have had 2 away goals and they would have had to go out and score 2. And I don't know if that would have happened, especially we would have had all the momentum. So I really thought that goal was going to change everything. And immediately, we could talk about the decision. I mean, I don't think there's much in it, but that Jefferson red card right on the other side of half, it kind of killed us. And basically whatever Kaiser said at halftime, his team talk, his tactics, it all went out the window within 3 minutes. It's as if it never happened and everything had to change. And then, I mean, the response was okay. But that whole time, it just felt like their goal was coming. It didn't seem like we were creating enough. We didn't really deserve another goal. And it felt like if we could take it to extra time, then it would have been, it would seem like they were satisfied with that, to take it to extra time. And they were knocking on the door. The formation was all fucked up. At some points, it almost seemed like when we were defending in our own half, it seemed like we had like 6 at the back, and then 2 holding mids, and then Bas Dost 40 yards away on the last defender, and then just acres of space in the space between that. It was not fantastic, and I really wasn't surprised when they scored because I had seen it coming the whole time. And then we had, Bas Dost really had a great chance at the end. I really was curious to see what the response would be because they scored about between 75th and 80th minute, I think. So we had about 10 minutes to score a winner because, obviously we knew we were going out, 1-1 in Spain. It's not a bad result in a vacuum, but given the situation, you're going to go out with that result. We had to go for it. And that great chance fell to Bas Dost, and he's just not in form right now, and he went with his left foot, completely scuffed it. Could have gone with his head. It wasn't ridiculous. He could have it wouldn't have even been a full diving header. He just would have had to kind of just go down a little bit for it. But he went at it with his left foot, completely scuffed it, and you're not going to get a better chance than that that late in the game, and unfortunately we crashed out.
Okay, yeah. I'm not going to say much about it. You guys said it all. To me, I was very upset. I was actually home watching the game, and anyway, let's move on to the next game because you don't want to hear what I want to say. So against Maritimo, we went all the way down to Funchal, and we tied as well. We couldn't score, and the lineup was the following: Renan Ribeiro, which, by the way, he will stay at Sporting for a while. We bought him. Stefan Vitovski, Thiago Ilori, Coates, Christian Borja, Bruno Fernandes, Wendell, Goodels, Acuna, Diaby, and Bas Dost. And Kevin, I'm going to start with you now. So what do you think about the match?
Okay, from the start, something seemed off with Salah, after brilliant performance with 8 saves, being taken off and Renan being back as the main goalkeeper, which I can't understand. I don't know if you guys understand why that happened, but after his performance, it's beyond me. Rafinha, after his impact in the game against Villareal, doesn't start. Diaby keeps his place. Again, don't understand that, but okay, we go into the game. We haven't won at Maritimo in Funchal for 5 games since 2015, so it's a very hard place to go. And considering Maritimo have the worst attack in the league, we should be expected to win the game regardless. But something's wrong in the team. And you can see in the midfield that all 3 of them are tired. Goodell, Wendell, Bruno Fernandes, they're brilliant players. Maybe Goodell a bit less, but they're all brilliant players in their own areas. But they're being overworked, and they cannot keep up with the pace for the whole game. And when you don't have the midfield, it's the heart of the team, and then the rest of the team will struggle because of that. Because with Kaiser's tactic, you need to be very close together for the short passes, for the quick counter attacks. But if you don't have the center of the team, then the whole team is going to struggle from it. Acuna, Christovski on the wings will have to run more. Bas Dost will get left, and it's going to be like we're playing with a couple of men less, with the amount more that everyone will have to run. So, wasn't a great game overall. Bas Dost, Diaby having the worst games in my opinion. Just not having a couple of misses, not creating anything, but it's quite poor from everyone overall, just struggling to create chances. And we had 70% of possession, but what can we say from it? Nothing. It wasn't a great performance, and against a team like Maritimo in the state that they're in, we had to be better. We had to score goals. We had to put the motivation back into the team, and we didn't.
Yeah, pretty much. The lack of motivation was amazing. So, Chris, I'll let you go next.
Yeah, echoing what Kevin said, Baz was bad again. Missed a sitter in the first half. I don't know what's wrong with him. He can't score any chances. I mean, the ball was on a platter. All he had to redirect it. Couldn't get it done. But I mean, it's not his fault, obviously. It's not all his fault. I didn't. I think the first half was abysmal. Um, we played much better in the second half, and it really felt like we should have scored. I felt it was one of those games where like it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We kept creating dangerous moments. Bruno Fernandes had a chance. The free kick that almost went in as well. It felt like it was coming, but it never did. And it's unfortunate. I thought Rafinha was very dynamic when he came in. Like Kevin said it as well. I don't understand how he doesn't start, regularly. He's clearly better than Diaby, and he constantly shows when he comes in that he's dynamic, can create chances, get at his defender. And I thought that he really changed the game in the second half. He had a cameo as well, and I thought he played well. Love to see more of him. Don't know if it'll ever happen, but I really like what he's done in the limited opportunities that he's had. He's had less opportunities, I think, than Luis Felipe. Luis Felipe gets like 6 to 10 minutes every game, it seems. He hasn't really done much, but I mean, Dumbia's had even less opportunities, but he has impressed me more with his limited chances as well. And just Petit, I need to say this, but Petit, man, he sucks, man. His entire tactics is just sit back, park the bus, play for the draw. Like mentioned before, worst attack in the league. I mean, he is worthless. He plays loser ball. That tactical style is called loser ball. You're not even attempting to win the game. They're in danger of being relegated, and to be honest, they deserve it. It's a historical club, but if you hire Petit, he did great work with Tondela that one season where he saved them. But I mean, outside of that, he just bounces around, gets fired from every team, and just goes to another lower to mid-table team, gets fired, does it again. I mean, by the end of the next 4 years, he's gonna have coached every team in Portugal.
Sporting, please.
Yeah, I mean, him and Pizzedo, man, very very similar type. Pizzedo's actually probably a better coach, honestly. He drove me crazy. They wasted so much time. And Nelson Pereira after the game was irate. I mean, Kaiser got sent off. Pereira got sent off. I think someone else got sent off as well. Coates did for fucking the bullshit thing with the goalie diving. I mean, their goalie had a great game. Don't get me wrong, but he needed medical attention 3 times. Coates is just trying to get the ball. He dives in front of him and then flails dramatically. Coates gets sent off. It was borderline unwatchable from Maritimo. They totally did not deserve a point out of this game, and it's just a damn shame that we did not punish them.
No, agreed. And I'll have a few questions for you guys, but I'm going to let Patrick go first.
Yeah, so typically, I think one word summarizes that, and that's frustrating. As Kevin said, Maritimo is not an easy place to go to, and our past results have suggested that. Even more so when they're in a precarious and delicate situation, which is obviously being down the bottom and in need of points. Their attack isn't flowing as well as they'd like. So I think Sporting, they should have expected one of those games that every now and then comes up in front of us where the team is just going to waste time at every opportunity and make things as slow and frustrating for the team as possible. And I think it showed even by the end of it with Coates' red card. Sporting had just had enough of the situation that they had been lured into. I think the goalkeeper Charles went down with pretty much nothing injury very early on. So, that set the tone for the rest of the game with regards to Maritimo's game plan. In terms of Sporting's performance, it wasn't the worst that we've seen in these last 1 or 2 months, but, it still wasn't good enough, obviously. We had 1 or 2 chances in which we could have scored from. And perhaps had we tucked one away, maybe Dost's, maybe the landscape of things would have looked different for us. But we didn't, and outside of that, I don't think we showed quite enough to really make the game ours. Why is that? I would probably point towards, the obvious thing for us to point towards is a lack of confidence. Where we started so well and everything was fantastic under Kaiser. Now we've got a few bad results under our belt, and it's natural. I think in the turbulent season that we've had, when things start to go wrong, I think I was expecting things to switch off in the players' minds quite easily, and I think that's what's happening right now. I'm not sure the players are truly believe in what they're being told in the dressing room, in training. I'm not really sure they're buying into it, especially when tough situations arise, such as Maritimo making it difficult for us, or in other games where we concede fairly early. Things are rocking a little bit for us at the moment, and all of that comes down to belief. It's difficult to watch at times, obviously. But, we just got to keep plugging away and see what we can do next against Portuguese. But for sure, I think we're suffering from a mixture of no confidence or lack of belief of what's being told
by Kaiser. Okay, yeah. So I have a couple questions, and I'm going to start with this question is for Kevin. So now that we know the more or less, because all of a sudden Varandas and Francisco Salgado Zenia decided to tell the whole world our financial situation. They made it sound like Sporting is in the hole, and we kind of are in the hole, but it doesn't mean that Benfica and Porto they're any better. This is the difference between our club and the other clubs. But it is what it is. Now we know the truth. We owe 54 million to creditors and other clubs, including Guimarães, Rafinha, 4.1. We still owe money to Racing of Argentina for Acuna. We owe money to Fiorentina for Bruno Gaspar. Where's the fucking money anyway? We owe money to Sampdoria for Bruno Fernandes still. We owe money to everybody. Now, Kevin, the question to you is, do you think this is why we're performing the way we are performing? Because now we all know there's a financial problem with Sporting.
I think it could impact the team in a way, but the bad performances have definitely started before the whole financial situation came out. Because you see with Kaiser, as soon as we lost the first game, Kaiser's changed. He changed his substitutions. He stopped playing the youth, and he stayed with the same 11 players every single game. So I can't see it just being down to the financial situation at the club, but it could help. I mean, the players definitely know what's going on around them. So who's to sell if they're scared of what's going to happen to the club, or if they know where the paycheck is coming from. I mean, this is the club that pays them every week, so they could be worried they won't get paid the next week if we owe 50 millions to wherever it is. So, yeah, I'm not sure. But again, if they were aware of the financial situation, would they not want to put the good performances in to get the Champions League spot, to get the club out of this, or to put them on the transfer list and for them to get out of here if the club's unstable? I don't know. It's very hard to say at the moment.
Yeah, I
Fernandes
agree.
needs to talk.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would want to win against Villareal and get the money that you get for the win in the Liga Europa, for example. I feel the same way. So, Chris, now another tough question for you. Um, Technically, and all the stats put together, only 56 minutes were played in this Maritimo game. After all the injuries, all the breaks, only 56 minutes were played. So it's minus, what is it, 36 minutes? So now, what can we do? Who's to blame?
Well, I mean that's a quote from Nelson Pereira. That's why part of the reason why he was a rate. It's the referee. In the end, I mean, you can punish them by adding stoppage time. We got 4 minutes of stoppage time in that game, and fucking Charles rolled around for 2 of those minutes, and then
Which he was the MVP of the game, by the way.
he played a great game, but he also wasted 10 minutes of it.
Exactly. It's like, what the fuck? He's the MVP of the game after he wasted all that time. That's great. That's the Liga Nos is a fucking wow.
Which I mean, for their tactics, I mean, on paper, we're gonna look at his saves and the game that he played, but to them, that 10 minutes goes into part of his great performance for them, because he made, if they're playing 10 less minutes because of his fake injuries, it's benefit for them because there's less time for Sporting to play and score. So I mean, I think it's on the referee.
So the referee should have given, let's say, 15 minutes of stoppage time.
I think he should have given like 8 to 10. Yeah.
8 to 10. I agree. Oh, even more. So
yeah,
that's the only way these fucking teams will learn.
And another thing that constantly drives me crazy is once you give the stoppage time, the amount of time that gets wasted in the stoppage time, and then they just blow it right at what the stoppage time that they gave. So Charles goes down at 93. They resume play at 96, and then he blows it 30 seconds later. That doesn't make any sense.
At all. Valid point. So now, Patrick, last question about this game. Bruno Fernandes, he tried, but you could tell he's getting exhausted, and he's not going to be able to put on those performances all the time. Who can step up and be Bruno Fernandes, because we're burning him out?
I really don't see anyone stepping up to the caliber of Bruno Fernandes, especially because the other midfielder who has the capabilities of taking command of the game in one way, plays next to him in that box-to-box role, is Vendel. But Vendel's even more fatigued than Bruno Fernandes. He's been playing the last 2 games with an injury. So it's complex, and obviously I don't think there's anyone in the squad who has the confidence and the mentality as well as the ability, the whole package to really produce anything like what Bruno Fernandes is doing. It would have been nice had we at the start of the season recognised that this is a star player, and we have another player who can perhaps follow in his footsteps in Geraldo. In my opinion, that's what I would have done. I would have used Geraldo to shadow Bruno Fernandes, and you would have gotten a different output mentally out of the young boy, and perhaps Bruno Fernandes would be fresher because you would have been able to play Francisco Geraldo in however many games, 5-10 more games, and giving Bruno Fernandes a rest here and there. And the same thing goes for the likes of Miguel Luis, who perhaps should have been afforded a few more minutes because he's looked decent whenever he has played. But I think now it's very difficult. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes' form is very good right now. So to even think about giving him a rest is nuts because Sporting's form is terrible. So Bruno Fernandes has been pretty much the only thing keeping Sporting going lately. So even if we'd like to give him a rest, we can't even fathom such things. So yeah, it's complex, and obviously until the end of the season, it's very difficult for me to envisage someone filling in his shoes. So if he gets injured, it'll be interesting to see what Kaiser does to cover up for it. But let's hope that it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, agreed. So let's move on. It's about these two embarrassing games. We spoke about enough about it. So let's move on. So now the next topic will be our president, Frederic Varandas. He had a speech not too long ago, a few days ago, like a week ago today. Did you guys watch it live on YouTube or?
Yeah, I picked up some of it live on TV.
Okay,
I watched it.
Okay, so overall, him and the whiz of the finances, Mr. Francisco Salgado Zenia, were talking about our Sporting. A week ago, they were just talking about lightly, nothing in depth. And then a few days later, they gave all the breakdown of how much we owe, how much money we need by June, how much money we need by the end of 2019. I don't know why they waited a few more days and didn't do everything on Friday. I have no fucking clue. It was very convenient for them to do it off camera instead of doing it the same day a week ago. So now you guys listen to what they had to say. Were you guys impressed? Were you guys happy as Sportingistas? So, Chris, go first.
Well, I mean, I definitely wasn't impressed. It's a lot of finger pointing. To me, the way that this team operates and the debt that exists is not anything new. Obviously back in 2012, 2013, Sporting was about 300 million euros in debt. Present day, they're about 130 million euros in debt. So they've about halved that debt. Just a side point really quick. It's kind of funny because when you consider it, Porto and Benfica are also massively in debt. Benfica is actually the second most in-debt club in Europe, behind only Manchester United, who's over 500 million euros in debt. Benfica is about 300 million euros in debt. Porto has about 40 million more. So, I mean, it's funny because you would think that this is a uniquely Sporting issue, but it's actually kind of a bigger issue with European football in general, and even Portuguese football, because 3 of our clubs are in the top 20 in all of Europe. So it's just kind of, debt is kind of the business model, because theoretically, from an economic standpoint, Sporting is 130 million euros in debt, but we have assets that we theoretically sell. We have a stadium. We have a pavilion. So we're not bankrupt, because you're bankrupt when your debt is larger than your assets. And obviously our assets value more than 130 million euros. So, I mean, I think that what happened, especially with this loan that we owe to this Novo Bank and Millennium Bank, the 42 million euros that's due in June. I believe that must have been a loan from the Bruno Carvalho era, and they took that loan out 4 years ago. So it's not like they just found out about it yesterday. That loan has always existed, and the reason that loan has existed is because the club was actually almost bankrupt 5 years ago. So something had to be done to essentially save the club, because at that point our assets did not total more than our debt. Back in the Goldini Lopes, the end of that tenure, 2013-ish. So it's irresponsible, I think, by this current administration to be spending the way that they've spent this season. And honestly, a big fuck you to Sousa Sintra, especially because he he spent like he knew about this loan that was due. It was took out in 2014. 40 million. This is we have to pay this. Why are you spending 4 million to get Nani? Why are you firing a coach 10 days after he's hired? I mean, why are we? And then you go to Varandas too. Why are we buying Bruno Gaspar? Actually, that was saying. Why are we forcing Viviano out when we owe him 2 million in salary? It's like they were spending as if this debt and this payment that they knew about didn't exist. So now here we are 3 months out, and they're like, oh my God, we have to pay this debt. It was his fault, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, obviously the debt, and the specific payment that your hair is on fire about was from the Bruno Carvalho era. Yeah, you didn't take this specific loan out, but it's not like you didn't know about it. So I don't understand. I really don't understand why they're acting honestly crazy about it. I think that they are just kind of banking on people not really knowing, or people being mad about Bruno Carvalho and the end of his tenure, so they can kind of ride the wave off of, yeah, fuck him, right? So I don't understand, fully what their plan was from the beginning.
Okay, so now me personally, I'm just going to give my 2 cents because this kind of touched my soul. The speech itself about Frederic Varandas reading off an iPod, he was obviously getting the answers from somebody else. So that tells me that under pressure, he sucks. Then second, he didn't say much. He was too busy in talking about the past, about Bruno Carvalho this, Bruno Carvalho that, talking about silly things, about negotiations with the team from Cape Verde and association and all that bullshit, which to me, it's irrelevant. I'm more interested as a fan. I'm more interested of the present and the solutions for the future. Not so much about the past. I don't give a shit about that, So you can put that on the relatorio, then we can read it. I can read it myself. Now we know the amounts we owe to people, $54 million to creditors and clubs, which is a lot of fucking money. It's a lot of money. You don't get that, overnight. So you need to be creative and you need to find solutions. His speech was a misery. It was an embarrassment and a waste of time. Because now, a week later, or a few days later, he talks about all the nitty-gritty, which he should have spoken about on that Friday. Why he avoided that, I have no clue. Well, I do have a clue why. It was convenient for him because he wasn't live. So now, Patrick, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Now we know we owe $54 million. If you were the president of Sporting Club Portugal, what would you do to solve this problem?
Well, I think one avenue you could take, obviously, is the one that they're discussing currently, which is to ask for the TV money, receive it earlier, like Bruno Carvalho had done previously. Before that, we got that contract with Naj, which is actually due to start next season. But I think with the money that we can request now, I think that would have been 40% of it gone already, which isn't positive at all. But Sporting are a club with needs, and here in this deal between us and Naj, we could have a solution. But naturally, what I think will happen is come the end of the season. The way Sporting are performing and the level that Bruno Fernandes is performing, they're at two completely different stages. And I don't see how Sporting can convince a player like Bruno Fernandes, who is clocking up 10, 20 goals a season. I don't see how Sporting can really convince him to stay. And with this need for money...
Hello?
I think you muted yourself, Patrick.
Yeah, I think so too. So So we're going to move on until Patrick comes back. So Kevin, so who's to blame?
Yes. So,
Are you back?
Oh,
Okay,
he's back.
good. Even better. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, this happened.
Where was I?
This happened twice. The last podcast. With you
Sorry?
and this happened twice. The last podcast with you and Danny and Chris. Like we lost the sound completely.
Yeah, someone just called me.
Oh,
So,
okay, go ahead.
yeah.
You're talking
Yeah,
about we're not going to be able to hold on to Bruno Fernandes for too much longer.
Yeah. I just don't see how Bruno Fernandes will stay with the form that Sporting are in, and the form that he's in. So I can very easily envisage a move to, say, the Premier League or La Liga, even Serie A. He's been there before, so he knows the league quite well. I think he'll definitely be the player who will make a move, and then Sporting does what they do with the cash. Maybe we live in a situation where Sporting takes both avenues, takes the money from Nigel, sells Bruno Fernandes and attempts to rebuild next season in that way. But for sure, I reckon we're moving into a situation where we will sell a player. I know they said they didn't need to, but I think
For now, they said they didn't need to. For now,
yeah, they didn't need to for now, but I think they will. I think the time is probably going to come up right for Bruno Fernandes. I mean, put yourselves in his position. He's 24, turning 25, I believe. You've had two very good seasons. 25 is a good age for you to make a jump to a big league, and competition is fierce in the Portuguese league for in a Portuguese national team as well for players in his position. So he really needs to be at a platform, a bigger platform where he can really, start reaching newer and bigger heights. So I reckon that's going to be the most sensible thing to do by the end of it, and that's just what I can see Sporting doing.
okay. So Kevin, you as a Sportingista fan all the way from United Kingdom, you look at your club and you say, and you tell yourself, can I believe and can I trust and can I see Varandas and Francisco Zenya to solve the problems of my Sporting? Can you see that? Do you feel confident? Can you see those two being able to solve the problem?
No way. No way at all. From when Bruno Carvalho came in, his first speech, he was honest with the Sporting issues. He said he's going to give the club back to the socios, which he did. He brought us Sporting TV, Pavilhão, gone us what else. He saved us from financial trouble. Okay. We could still be in debt, which is true, apparently, but we were in a good financial position with the signings we were making, with the investment in the modalities. Everything was okay. But then Varandas comes in, and he doesn't release anything like Bruno Carvalho did. Bruno Carvalho would always release the financial records. He'd always be upfront with the supporters. He'd always be giving interviews and just saying what was happening, why was this was happening, and why was the best thing for the club. Varandas doesn't say anything until it got to the point where he had to be upfront and say, we're 40 million in debt. But what I want to know is why we're paying 6 million to Jorge Mendes since he came back to the club, since we started doing business with him again. Why are we paying 4 million on loans for two players that haven't even worn a Sporting shirt yet? Why are we paying 10 million for players, one of which we paid 4 million for a defensive midfielder who hasn't even made that much of an impact? He's played a few games, he doesn't even start, he doesn't get a chance. He's not getting his fair share of football for the price tag that we paid for him. Why are we paying 10 million for players in January? And then the next month we're saying we're 40 million in debt. Why are we acting like we have no debt when apparently we have debt? Why is this happening? You cannot say that this is Bruno Carvalho's fault, because Varandas, whatever he's doing, he's handling it worse.
Agreed. So, Chris, really fast. Do you think the attack on the academy has a big role to play in the situation we in today?
I think that it definitely partly does, because obviously some of the players rescinded their contracts, and then the players we did negotiate, for example, Rui Patricio, we got 18 million for him, but we didn't actually get 18 million for him. We only got about 12 million, and George Men's got about 6 million.
No, hold on. There's a new twist into that. I would recommend you guys to go to Twitter and go to Sherba. He's actually part of Sporting160 on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him.
And then he had a nice little write-up narrative about that, and he breaks everything down. And from Rui Patricio, we only got 2/3 of that money. 2 million went to an investment for a Chinese player that's in our club.
Yeah, David Wang, I believe his name.
He hasn't played 1 minute.
Joking.
Hasn't played 1 minute. So
No way.
that was just to open the doors in China. I don't know what kind of fucking doors. But anyway, so 2 million went for that to a perspective from China. And so we didn't get much from Rui Patricio at all. But go ahead.
Yeah. So okay, so what I actually think, not to go back in history and relitigate the past here, but the players that rescinded their contracts wanted to leave, and I believe that they opportunistically took the opportunity to leave. And I don't know if any of you have read any of Bruno Carvalho's book yet, but he I will say this: he has a knack for being. He was obviously a great negotiator, but he seems like a nightmare to deal with if you're on the other end of the negotiation. And I think the Adrian case is a great example of he fucked that one up. I mean, he got what he wanted, but he fucked Adrian and Leicester in the process. His talk about ending Marco Silva's contract and how that all went down. He's a great negotiator, but he's not. I wouldn't want to deal with him. You know, I'm glad he was the one that he was on our team and not the other way around, because he gets what he wants and he'll drag it out. He'll milk you for every last penny, and he'll be bombastic about it in the process. So I think that players like Rui Patricio, Gelson Martinez, William Carvalho, they had wanted to leave, and they had tried to leave the summer before, and it didn't work out because Bruno Carvalho was doing his thing. So yeah, I mean, obviously it sucks. It happened. Some of them got hit. We don't know the specifics. We know Bas Dost took a belt to the head, and he was actually physically hit. Yeah, I don't know if William Carvalho was actually hit, but nonetheless, it was a traumatizing event. I understand, but they milked it. And as a result of that, they were able to get out of the club. And part of that, losing those assets, and then the players that we did receive compensation for, like Rui Patricio, as we just said, load of bullshit. I mean, I'm glad we didn't get 0 million euros for him in the end, which seems like it's going to happen with Gelson. Monaco's in the process of signing him from Atletico Madrid. He's been playing great on loan for them, and they want to sign him. And when I read the headlines like Monaco interested in triggering Gelson buyout, I'm just like, how is that happening? We have not received a cent for that. Has Varandas just given up? Because if he has just given up, then that's embarrassing.
No, it's still in. I mean, enough is enough. It's not on Varandas now. That's in the court system, so we just got to wait.
I just don't understand how a player can be transferred for a second time if the original club is still owed money or there's a case tying it up. It's crazy to me.
He's not being transferred. They saying they interested. So
yeah. So
being interested is one thing, and
okay, so it's March. If it happens in June, in 3 months, is the case going to be resolved? I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know. So it might be one of those deals that later on, if they see, hey, Sporting is entitled to such a money. It's going to be Athletic Madrid will have to give an amount, and Monaco will have to give a certain amount as well.
Yeah. So obviously that transfer alone theoretically could cover this 40 million looming bank payment. I mean, obviously smaller players like Ruben Ribeiro rescinded, don't really fucking care. Apparently he's found a new club in UAE, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he would have netted in a potential lawsuit anyways. But I mean, at least, a couple million, 2 million, 3 million. I don't know what his value is. But I know it's not zero. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustrating. And just to go back to the original question of the attacks, it kind of set this whole cycle of turbulence in motion. And at the same time, it also gives Varandas an out because he can keep pointing to it. I think it was today or yesterday, he said next summer is year zero, for Sporting. We start year zero. So I'm not sure what year zero means. Does that mean we play next season as year zero, and then the season after that is year one? So he gets like a 1.5 year buffer before he actually starts. I just think for him it's very convenient. It's convenient for the players who wanted to leave and didn't want to deal with Bruno Carvalho's negotiating, and it's convenient for him because he can keep pointing to it as a scapegoat and his predecessor as well.
Okay, so now with all this said, this is the solution they came up with. They saying that they need to raise $100 million by the end of the year. Okay, so do you all have a pen and a piece of paper? Really fast? Do you have it?
I've got a calculator.
That's fine, even better. So get a pen, piece of paper, or calculator on your cell phone, which is a calculator. I'm 46, so sometimes I kind of forget about those details. Okay, so here we go. Let's come up all together with that money for Sporting. We're going to save our club, okay? So this is the value of our A squad. René Ribeiro, and you can round it off. Market value is at 2.28. Salin, 228,000. Maxi, 228. Sebastian Coates, 16. André Pinto, 3.5. Ilori, 2.3. Mathieu, 2.3. Acuna, 17.1. Jefferson, believe it or not, 2.8. I know. Borja, 2.2. Brun Gaspar, 5.1. Kitovsky, 4.0. Dumbia, 2.85. Petrovic, 1.1. Rodrigo Battaglia, 11.4. Wendell, 8.5. Gudelci, 7.4, but he's on a loan, so he doesn't really count. Miguel Luis, 2.85. Bruno Fernandes, 34.2. That's his market value.
Is that a joke?
No, that's the market value. Chico Geraldo is at 4.5. I don't know who comes up with these fucking numbers. Rafinha, 7.4. Jovan Cabral, 8.0. Diaby, 6.2. Bastos, 25. And Luis Felipe, 1.7. So, whoever comes up with the amount first, let me know. And Chris, you said that we owed we in the hole by 130 million or 112.
133 was
the last amount.
The last amount from what I could find on the internet.
Okay. Damn, you guys really suck at math.
I lost track in there about halfway, so I'm going back through transfer market and adding in their values.
Was I going too fast?
No, it was fine.
To be honest, when I got the calculator out, it was too late.
166, I
One
believe.
Okay, 166. So there it is. So
I came up with 157, but yeah, let's just average that 160.
and that's fine. That's fine. 160. So there we go. So
Bearing in mind that Bruno Fernandes is worth a lot more as well.
yes, indeed. So I would say 200. The
Jefferson a lot less.
Yes, that's it.
I personally think that Bagley could be sold for more than 10 as well.
Yeah. So with that,
yeah, 200.
With that said, Sporting is not in a bankruptcy situation at all.
No,
The team itself covers the whole amount. The thing is, we have to pay the bank, and that's where the problem is. And my question to Kevin will be: who's the president that you would elect that has charisma and can gather all the Portuguese? Because now we all divided. Who do you see in Portugal, or even outside of Portugal, but most likely it'll be from Portugal, someone capable of having charisma like Bruno Carvalho, and the fans will blindly say, yes, this is our guy, this is the guy I'm going with, I'm going to pay my scotas, buy my game boxes, football, modalities. That's it. That's the guy I believe in. Who do you see?
It's not Fernandes, like we've seen.
No.
I think we can all agree on that.
Nope.
Bruno Carvalho, that would not benefit anyone at this point. The guy is tired of everything. You can see in his book, you can see in his face, you can see in his interviews, he's not fit for the job anymore. He needs a rest. We've tired that guy out.
He's beat up.
Yeah. So, like we had in the elections in September, we had Fernandes and the guy who lost, who got more votes. We had João Benedito, the rightful president of Sporting. That's who I put in as the president.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do like João Benedito, and that is who I voted for. But I'm just going to backtrack go back to the original claim here that Sporting must cover this debt. I believe that a football club can operate in debt because as we've seen, we are not bankrupt. Our assets are not in danger of being greater than our debt. Obviously, once the debt gets inflated, like it was to 300 million, then you start to get yourself into trouble. But if we cut this debt in half and we get it down to 70 million, we can perfectly fine operate with that because you always know that you can sell a player or whatever. So I think that if we cover these 60 million, just through the sales of two players and then the investments, that's how this club has always worked. It's a selling club. We develop players and then we sell them for high values. Then we go out and we go to South America. We have our academy. We spend 2, 3, 4 million here or there. And then the cycle repeats itself. This isn't anything new. I do not understand why the people are acting like the sky is falling. This is always how our club has worked.
Well, the problem is, and I see it, and now I'm going to ask you another question since I'm going to piggyback off your question or your statement. So I'm an investor. I'm going to ask you. Listen, I want to invest 50 million on Sporting, but can you guarantee me that shit that happened on the 15th of May will never happen again? Can you guarantee me that? Because it bothers me, and that's fucking with my investors. I have a lot of money, but my investors, my partners, they skeptical. They saying, you saw what happened at the academy, beating up players. I mean, that's our money at stake. Can you guarantee me that, sir?
Yeah. So the shares after that happened plummeted.
Yes.
And understandably so because of the volatility of the situation. And I mean, that's how stocks work. They rise and fall based on their expected return.
Performance.
Yeah. In this case, it's a soccer club. So at this point, the shares are in the price of the shares is essentially back up to what it once was originally. It fell and it rises and then it fell again a little bit and now it's back up to essentially where it was. So I mean, people who are investing in the shares of the club like they did in the first half of the season when all these ex-players were investing in shares. Do you guys remember that? They made a big deal about it. Rui Patricio, William Carvalho were some of the bigger names that invested in some of the shares of the club. There's money there. There really is money there. And I think that obviously it's very quickly removed. It hasn't even been a full year since these original events occurred. But, once we're already, it's almost time to move past it. But, theoretically, we could still be getting some money coming in. Another name, Podence, I don't know what happened to him as far as the lawsuit, if it's just going to get tied up in the courts for years. But, I think that if we could cover this, cover these loans that are pending, and then in 2 years or whatever, we get 60 million euros just shot in here, it'd be put us in a really good situation. It would change the game.
Okay, now, thank you, Chris, for that. Now, Patrick, why is it such a big deal in the Portuguese culture? Because in the Premier League, it's quite frequent, and in America too. Why is it such difficult in Portugal to give up the name of the stadium and the pavilion? We could be making a bunch of money if this stadium was called Geico Stadium, or the pavilion would be called whatever,
Pavillon Superboc.
Yeah, whatever. So why is this such a big deal in Portugal? Because there's money to be made, but in the Portuguese culture, they don't want to give up José Alvalade. They don't want to give up João Rocha. Why? I know you don't live in Portugal, but
yeah. I mean, I guess it's just pride, really, and even here, sometimes it happens. If we look at Newcastle, obviously, Newcastle's owner is the owner of a sports shop called Sports Direct, and he came to a stage where he renamed the infamous St James's Park into the Sports Direct Arena. That was all a way of promoting his business in another way, and obviously Newcastle fans didn't like that because it's been St James's Park since forever. But I think, obviously, in that situation, in Newcastle's situation, they weren't actually gaining anything from it. The only person that was gaining from it was the owner, because he was self-promoting his own business. But if that was to happen at Sporting, for example, the Alvalade was all of a sudden to become, as Chris said, the Super Boca Arena or something like that. To us, I guess, we'd still be saying, "Oh, I'm going to the Alvalade this Saturday." To us, it's still the Alvalade, but it's officially for a certain amount of years called the Super Boca Arena, and we'd be getting money from it. And personally, I think that's just the way sports is heading. And in America, it's already established. In England, sort of. Germany is very established. It's that sort of culture. It just hasn't caught on in Portugal for some reason. I think it would certainly be nice in terms of attracting money, but obviously I don't know why.
But it ain't like they're not getting offers. They're getting offers. The thing is, the presidents, and they afraid of the reaction of the fan base.
Yeah.
Which
I guess it's just pride.
To me, it's a waste of a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, when the Eagles, they call themselves the Lincoln. Yeah, let's go to the Lincoln. The arena for the Devils is called the Prudential. So, I mean, who gives a shit about the name of the stadium? If they're willing to pay 10 million, which now we need the money, that's another source of revenue that we should look into. That's why I'm mentioning it. And I don't get that Portugal is still stuck in the Stone Age with that shit. That's why I'm mentioning this. And if some fan doesn't like it, hey, be it. But it works, though. It works. It makes money.
It's just it comes down to pride, essentially. Historically, especially for Sporting and Benfica, we've kept the Alvalade, we've kept the Luz, and these are parts of the club's DNA, essentially. Porto's changed.
I know, but we're in the hole now.
It used to
we
be
need
the
money.
Antas, now it's the Stadio Dragão. See, Porto are well positioned. I think Porto, for example, if Porto were to come up tomorrow and call their stadium the New Balance Arena, I reckon that would open doors. And I think we'd eventually, Portuguese footballing world would eventually become more open to the idea. I think it just takes one big club to do that for us to see a knock-on effect. It's happened quite slowly, and obviously, as I said, I think that's because of the pride and because these names mean something to us and the history of our club. But
like you said, the name will be kept anyway. It'll be a sub name.
That's what some people I think don't really gauge. Really, it's just because by the end of the day, you're going to call it what you know it as, and to us, it's the other lads. That's what we know it as, unless another name catches on. But even then, these contracts aren't. It's not going to be the Super Boc Arena forever.
Exactly.
It's
maybe
yeah, maybe 2, 3, 5 years, maybe 10 years if the money's good. But that's the important thing. The money is coming in. And you can start small, of course, as you said. We can rename Alcochetas. Benfica have also thought about renaming Seychelles, whatever their thing is called. I think these are smart moves to be making, and we're not obviously. Yeah, to me, it just comes down to pride. But I think Portuguese culture should certainly be more open to those sorts of avenues.
Yeah, the source of solutions in our case, because we do need the money. Okay, Kevin, Kaiser, in or out?
It's a difficult one at the moment. He's not showing what he showed at the start of his campaign at Sporting. So I reckon a new president, if he gave him the freedom to do what Kaiser wants to do, someone that can get the confidence back in Kaiser, because Varandas doesn't seem to be motivating him, and the side is suffering from it, because Kaiser, when he suffered the first loss, it all went down from there. He couldn't motivate the side anymore. He hasn't been able to change anything. He hasn't been able to fix the tactics or anything. So I'd say give him another season. Give him the preseason from 2019 to 2020. See how he starts from there. And if it's not working, it's not working. We have to change.
Okay, sounds good to me. Chris, let's say Kaiser is out. Who would be his replacement?
I think a coach that I've always liked, and he was at the top of my list back when Peseiro was fired back in December, is Silas from Belenenses. I think he is a good coach. He's a good option if you're looking for an in-league hire. Obviously, I don't think he'd be massively expensive either. And another one who obviously I was looking to that. I don't know if you guys follow Goal Point. It's like a rating site. They rate games, players' performances. They kind of aggregate their overall performance, like attempted dribbles, completed dribbles, passes, attempted passes over passes. They released their manager ratings for the Primeira Liga and Segunda Liga. And right at the top of that list, who has been excellent with this season, I believe his name is Ivo Pinto from Moreirense.
Yes.
Moreirense has been fantastic this season, and he has absolutely nothing to work with. I think they have the 11th out of 16th smallest payroll, and they've been excellent. For him, the next step in his managerial career would be a club like Sporting. So, I think that he could be a good option as well. So, as far as in-league hires, I think Silas and Ivo Pinto would be at the top of my list.
Okay, good. So, talking about Moreirense, it's funny that you mentioned that they failed to register themselves for the Liga Europa for next year. So, lucky for Sporting, if we finish fifth, we still go.
Unless
That's what it
Guimarães
comes
gets up
to.
there.
This
I
is
know.
what it comes to.
I know, it's just embarrassing. Oh my god!
I mean,
Anyway.
that's how we got in because Avs couldn't register, so we lost the Taça de Portugal final, but we still got the auto group stage bid.
Yeah, we would have gone to a playoff. Yeah.
It's not even funny at this point. And
No,
it's just
no.
showing how far we've fallen.
Big
It's an
time.
embarrassment.
Big time. Okay, Kevin, I'm back at you. And what do you think about Bruno Carvalho being kicked out of being socio?
Complete utter disgrace with all that the man has done, with all that he's given, and that's how he's treated. It's unbelievable how Godinho has been let back into the club after what he did is opposition to Sporting. Everything that he did was to benefit himself and not the club. But Bruno Carvalho, with all that he's done, with all the work that he put in, with all that he tried to do, is just kicked out as if what he did with the modalidades, with Sporting TV, with the finances, with the pavilion, like it meant nothing. These fans that we've got now, they just seem to have a very small memory and they don't remember what happened before just because of an attack that was completely out of his hands. And you've seen for a while, since Varandas took over, since Sousa Sintra came in as the interim president, that Bruno Carvalho was being filtered out of the club. If you mention Bruno Carvalho in an interview, the Sporting TV presenter takes the microphone away from you. What is that? But then Bruno Carvalho is a dictator. It's disgraceful.
So you're against it?
Completely.
It's fair to say you're against it.
It's not right. It's not Sporting.
Yeah, good. So, so Chris, really fast, are you in favor or against it?
I will admit that he didn't bring it upon himself, but he was the one who first instituted such a policy existing in the first place. For right or for wrong, obviously people who put the club in the position that it was in leading up into 2013 were frauds and were enriching themselves, enriching agents, and they didn't give a fuck about Sporting. I mean, and that's pretty objective reality. So I wasn't opposed to what he did in that sense, but he did leave the door open for it to happen again, except he was on the receiving end of it this time. My opinion on it is much like Kevin's. I agree that I don't think he deserved it. Obviously the end of his tenure, the last 6 months, leading up into an attack that obviously it hasn't been proven that he had any part in it. They put on a theatrical performance of arresting him and all this stuff, but I mean, nothing was ever actually proven. Mustafa as well, nothing was ever actually proven. And then they kind of try to charge them with other things that just kind of make the save face a little bit. But getting back to it, I don't agree. He obviously saved Sporting. I didn't agree with him 100% of the time. And obviously his handling of the situation, texting the players after the Atletico Madrid game, I think that's what really started it. He was a great president in his time. I don't think that he can ever come back, but I mean, it's clear that he loves Sporting, and I think he deserves to be a socio. I don't think that his picture should be taken out of the Hall of Presidents. Like it's like they're trying to erase history, but you can't erase history because every time you walk to the complex and you see the Pavillon João Rocha, you can't erase that. So
propaganda is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Varandas propaganda.
Yeah. So let me flip it to Patrick. We still have a few topics to talk about. So really fast, are you against it or in favor?
I'd say I'm against it. Obviously, we know that he's a divisive figure, and should everything that's been thrown at him in terms of accusations prove to be true, then obviously you can build a stronger case for him to be expelled. But until then, I think it's disappointing to see, because what I see coming from the current Sporting presidency is a presidency that's waging war with this shadow, which the shadow being Bruno Carvalho. They're waging war with the shadow because results aren't on their side at the moment, and I think they are. To me, it feels like this is a good excuse to pull to cover for current failures and potentially future ones too. So that's what I don't like about it. I don't like the direction that this spat between the two presidents is going in.
Yeah, so I'm against it too. I don't think. I know he shouldn't have been kicked out, and the reason is very simple. He did just way too much for Sporting. You just don't kick out somebody just like that, and your lack of appreciation. And then second, Frederic Veranda, he missed a golden opportunity to gain some brownie points by saying, no, listen, we don't have to kick him out. Portuguese would have looked at him differently. He missed a golden opportunity. He's a total douchebag by not realizing that. So let's move on. So basically, we spoke about this, and that. Good. Let's talk about the modalities. So the game of the handball, we won away in Romania, 27-26. What do you guys think about that? First time that a Portuguese team has qualified to the round of 16 in that competition, Champions League of a handball. We among the best 16 teams in the whole European continent. What do you guys think about that? Chris, really fast.
Yeah, it's excellent. I didn't get to watch that game because, I typically watch the Sporting games at work. So that doesn't normally stop me, but I couldn't really find a mobile stream. I was trying. A bit difficult to find a handball mobile stream. So I was just following it along in the app, the play-by-play. And yeah, I was very, very happy and excited for them. Just another thing that going back, I don't want to go back too much to what we were talking about before, but the investment in the modalities and the success of the modalities, I'm afraid for them as far as if Sporting's looking to cut money and cut investments. I think that they could very easily turn around and not give a shit about the modalities. Varandas doesn't really seem too fond of the modalities. He never goes. On its surfaces, appears that he only cares about the football squad. He doesn't give a shit about the modalities. So I don't understand how you could possibly look at conquests like this, what our futsal team has done in Europe and domestically as well, and want to cut it. So it scares me a little bit. I don't want to see great triumphs like this end.
Okay, so basically, just to piggyback off that, to let you guys know, and I'm pretty sure you guys know, but the quotas we pay, they all go to the modalidades.
Mm-hmm.
So the modalidades, what we've seen, it's basically a switch from Sporting fans saying, you know what, the modalities, they give us all, they give everything to all of us. So they shifting away from soccer or football, and now they're focusing on the modalities. And now they actually buy game boxes for the modalities and supporting them more than the football team because they're kind of pissed. So that's a good thing. So the money is coming from us, the socios. I'm a socio. My son is a socio. My father's the socio. And we're not going to stop paying. And I'm kind of upset with a lot of Sportingistas saying, epá, eu vou deixar de pagar as cotas, nunca mais vou à Valado, isso vai ser o meu último jogo. I think that's the wrong approach. That's really the wrong approach. Sporting needs us now. As fans, we need to support our Sporting now. Sporting was founded in 1906. 1906. It has not. Varandas is just passing by. He's going to leave soon. So stop focusing on Varandas, what he's doing, and you don't like it. You're upset because Bruno Carvalho is not the president. My take on it is to all Sportingistas, support your club. Forget about verandas. By supporting your club, you only have a few ways to do it. It's by becoming socios. If you live in Portugal, buy the game boxes and support your Sporting. Buy the merchandise, buy the newspaper, but support your Sporting. Never, never say, epá, não quer saber, já não vou pagar as cotas, já não quer saber mais nada. That's the wrong approach. You fucking our club even more. That's how I see it. I don't know if you guys see it the same way, but that's how I see it. But I don't want to take away from this great performance. Kudos to Frankie Carol. He scored 8 goals. Amazing performance by him. Ruesga scored 5 goals. Tiago Rocha he scored 4 goals. So I'm very, very content with our coach, Canella. Great performance by our goalie, Stock. He had 7 saves in the second half. I'm a huge handball fan. That's why I know all these stats. But I'm telling you, our team is an amazing team, and the success, it has all to do keeping the same team for the base of the team has been together for 3 years, and the same goes for futsal, and the same goes with volleyball, which they won in Italy after being down 2-0. They came back and won 3-2 against Mossa in the second hand of the playoffs. So I'm very, very happy with our modalities. They've been just amazing. Our King Petings, they moved on to the quarterfinals. Ladies track and field champions of Europe, judo champions of Europe, handball round of 16, futsal final 4, roller hockey the quarterfinals, volleyball just 1 game away to reaching the final, table tennis semifinals. So the heart and soul of our Sporting is our modalities, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for them, because they don't make as much money as our football team does. And if our football team just played half of the way these modalities play, we would be in so much better shape. Also, kudos to our female team. They won 3-0 against Boavista. They're just 3 points away from Braga. It's going to be a tough one to accomplish, because the decisive game will be against Braga in Braga, and they have a great team. They acquired 4 Americans, and the 2 of them, they're like 6'2". They play midfield, great strength, and very mobile. And we have to win 3-0 against them at Braga, because we lost at home against them 2-0. So it's not impossible. And now the last question of the day, and I'm going to ask this question to everybody, and then we'll go with the predictions with the Portimonense. So Kevin, you'll go first. Do you, as a Sportingista, is to give up on your club and say, fuck it, eu não vou pagar as cotas, não vou comprar mais game boxes, I'm not going to any more soccer games, I'm giving up. Do you think that's a solution?
You'll get verandas out faster, but no. I'll be honest, I haven't paid since September, since everything went on, and I thought it'd be the right thing to do, but it's not. The modalidades don't deserve to be hit because of one guy that's come into the club and just doesn't deserve to be there. What happened with handball, with Huesga playing his heart out, with all of those players in handball, that is Sporting Club Portugal, and they need to be supported. We need to give the support that we gave all these years for the football team. We need to give it to them and to all of the other modalidades.
Agreed. I like that. So Patrick, well, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes we need to remember what our position in this organisation is, and that is to be the supporters, and we're there to support. That even goes for football. Sometimes you see fans who go out there and they demand to be entertained, and sometimes players require a lot more than just abuse from the stands or whatever. They need your support for the full duration of 90 minutes, because a lot of things go in an athlete's head, both like psychologically. We're essentially there to support. So Why do anything else? The times for protests and all that, I think we can all find times in between games and exhibitions and to voice our discontent. But the main thing I think for us is to be there for the players, many of which aren't to blame at all for the situation that the club may find itself in. That goes for the footballers, for the players of futsal, handball, what have you. What they need is essentially our support, and we need to make sure that Sporting, the easy thing for some fans to think of is Varandas is coming. Oh, we're going back to the Godinho Lopes wage, which was obviously terrible. It could have ended the club. And although I can understand the sentiment that some fans don't want to be a part of that and they want to disengage with the club completely because that's not the club they identify themselves with. On another hand, by going to games, be it football, handball, and giving your support to the club, that's really one of the only salvations that the club has. So ultimately, just remember your place, remember who you love, and that's Sporting, and Sporting is the club that needs our support.
Agreed. So, Chris, you're the last one. So, tell me how you feel about it. Is that the solution? Giving up on our club? I understand the frustration from the Portuguese, especially from Portugal, the ones that live it like every day. They go to all the games and stuff like that. But realistically thinking, when you sit down and you take a deep breath and you think about it and you say, wow, my club is struggling. If I give up on my club because I'm so pissed with this goddamn president, are you helping out or you fucking the club even more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it only makes it worse. I'll never abandon the club. I'll never turn my back to the club. I'll never stop watching. Even for fucking 7th place again. I'm never gonna tune it out. I don't know what the hell I'd do with my life, honestly, if I did that. I think that it's also important, something to remember, that I understand that the financial situation, it's not the greatest, but in theory, us fans, we still run the club. We elect a president. We pay our dues, and we have the right to choose our leader. Obviously, I think that we fucked it up, and I think that the system is a little bit messed up. With the older people having more of a say. But I think that one of the things that Varandas promised us, and we really, really, really need to hold him to this, is electronic voting, so that we can all vote at these Assembleia Gerals, not only elections, but when we're voting to whether or not to kick Bruno Carvalho out of the club, things like that. I think that only giving 4,000 Sporting fans who live in Lisbon and don't have work or other prior conflicts says on such big decisions is difficult to support a system like that. But in theory, we still have the power. We still have the vote to choose things like this. If we just had a rich Saudi sugar daddy who was the owner of the majority of the shares of the club, and he just called the shots. I mean, if he ran the club into the ground, we wouldn't have a say because he would be doing with everything that he wanted, whatever the fuck he wanted. So, we still, no matter what, will always own the majority of the club. I think that we should all stay engaged, and I think we should all vote, hopefully, with the ability to do that coming soon. At the end of the day, I'm never going to turn my back on this club.
Okay, good. So a couple final notes, and then we'll go for the predictions of the Sporting Portimonense, and we'll wrap it up. So a couple final notes. I don't know if you guys know if Bruno Carvalho appeals his suspension as a socio. You'll in 30 days they'll have a AG, uma Assembleia Geral, and then they will decide if that will be a suspension or not. For the time being, if he does appeal, the suspension will be suspended, so he won't be suspended. So it's something for you guys to know, everybody to know actually. What Chris just said. Do you think in the future we might see Sporting giving in and say, "Hey, let's look into having a sugar daddy, like you said, Chris, and buying off the club"? And do you think that's a possibility, really fast, without taking too much time, Kevin?
If there's an offer, can't say that it's a good idea to take it. Can't say that it'd be a bad idea, but if we're so much in debt, like Varanda says, and there's an offer, then there's no reason why we shouldn't try it. Sporting is a very historic club, as we all know, but look at the teams of today, like Manchester City. 10 years ago, where were they?
Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester United.
Of course.
Yeah.
And look where Sporting is now.
Got it.
Braga is about to take over our position if we're not careful.
No,
Braga,
you'll have to die and be born again to catch it.
We're talking football. We're talking in football.
No, yes.
In the club size, they'll never be better than what it is or Boavista or whatever.
Kevin,
in the club size, they don't have fans.
Braga is 82 years old. They've never been champion of Portugal.
I think a bit. But if you're not careful, the source of the income, the main source of income comes from the football club. And if Braga finishes third ahead of Sporting, we take a hit, which is the reality.
Yeah, but finishing third or fourth or fifth, it doesn't matter really. I mean, to me, if we finish fourth or third, it's the same to me. I want to be champion. I don't care if we finish third or fourth. It makes no difference.
When the owners come in and change the club around and invest, and the clubs like PSG, Manchester City, and God knows whoever else, they turn into real competitors, which is what Sporting needs to be with a club of this size, with fans like we've got, and the dodge that we have.
So you're in favor?
I'm in favor.
Okay, what about you, Patrick? Are you in favor or against it?
I'm neither or, to be honest, because the thing is with owners is that you have to be super careful because it can go one of two ways. You can obviously get an owner who's very invested in your project, as you say, like PSG's, like Manchester City's, like Chelsea's, even Monaco's. These are people that are invested in the project and they want their team to do well or in whatever it is that they do. But then for every Roman Abramovich and what have you, there's other owners dotted around the world who quite famously have massive rifts with the fan base because they do this and do that, and they promise lots of money one season and the next season it's just mass disinvestment. You can look at clubs like Cardiff City, clubs like Malaga,
Sunderland,
Newcastle, Sunderland, Blackpool. Blackpool are a Premier League club,
like Beira-Mar and Farense.
Exactly. It's you have to be careful because sometimes you can obviously land yourself in a worse position. If that was to happen to Sporting would be even worse off than they are now. And here we are, proud to say that the club is ours as fans. But, again, you have to think about the prospect, I guess. If we have a rich owner who's willing to invest organically into the club and put a good framework in place, and that's very positive. Not only will Sporting become a stronger team domestically and have a superiority over its rivals, unless they go the same way, but also Sporting are theoretically more prepared for bigger tasks, such as making a splash in the Champions League or in the Europa League, going further in those sorts of competitions, which, a club like Porto, like Sporting, like Benfica, they have to aspire to do. You know, we are the flags of Portuguese football, and what's happening right now is that the PSGs and the Manchester Cities and the Liverpools, Real Madrids, Barcelonas, you know, they've left us behind, and there's a massive gulf between Portuguese clubs and those right there. If we ever hope to one day catch up, I think logically that the best thing for Portuguese clubs to do would be to turn to a big owner. But as I said, that there are risks to doing that. Sometimes you get an owner that you really wish you never had. It's a bit like the presidents that we elect. The only difference is that the president only lasts about 4 or 5 years.
So about you, Chris, really fast. So what do you think?
Yeah.
You think a rich owner would solve all of our problems? Do you think in the future that's a possibility?
You know, I think that if something like that were to happen, I think that it leads me back to the whole thing. Like, I think that the system that we have in place needs to remain intact of the fans owning the club. If a decision like that were to be made, obviously it should be put up to vote, and everyone who is a Sócio should be able to vote, not 4,000 fans who live in Lisbon, you know?
Exactly.
So if we're going to do something like that, it's not just Varandas snapping his fingers and saying, oh, yeah, some Angolan oil tycoon now owns 70% of the shares of the club. I mean, that can't happen. You know, we're not in the situation that's, I mean, so dissimilar. I mean, Álvaro Sobrinho owns a third of the shares of the club. But I think that no matter what, we have to keep 51%. I mean, I obviously great things happen, bad things happen. But no matter if you have an owner like that, when the bad things happen, I think it's honestly a worse situation than in 3 years when Varandas is up for vote again. We can realize our mistake and we can try someone else. It's not, oh, now the club actually literally has no money because this guy said he was going to invest all this and then he just used it as a way to get tax breaks or hide his money, and he didn't actually care about the team because he's some Saudi guy and he doesn't give a fuck about Sporting. He didn't even know what it was a year ago, you know. So I honestly don't support it. Obviously, if someone wants to invest and buy up, you know, a third of the shares or 40% of the shares, something like that, I mean, that's something we could definitely look at. But obviously, no matter what, I think we need to have a vote on it. We should all be able to vote on it. And the current system that we have in place, although it doesn't always get the results that we want as far as the people that end up and the whether or not we're going to do this with a vote or not, whether this guy's going to get kicked out, whether we're going to, you know, sell this amount of shares or whatever. I think that the current, you know, the format needs to stay. The Sócios need to remain in control of the club.
Well, I'm just going to give my 2 cents as well, and then we'll go to the Sporting160EN prediction. So I think that the thinking of having one owner will never happen. Not only Sporting, but Portugal itself is very traditional, and they will never let it happen. And then second, but not last but not least, I agree with Chris. The election method should be electronic, and they should revamp the whole system. I do not, and I'll say it again, I do not agree just because you've been a Sócio for 20-some years that your vote counts for 20 votes. I don't agree on that. You should be given certain perks. I agree with that because you've been loyal to your club. You know, you should be able to get a golden box, game box, or a better deal. I agree with that. Give little perks, but not on the votes. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's something of the Stone Age that someone that's been in the club for 25 years, his vote is more than mine that I've been a Sócio only for 6 years. Benedetti won on the fan base. He had more fans voting for him than Varandas. Varandas won on the vote itself. Benedetti won on the fans themselves, and that bothers me because if Benedetti was the president now, I think me personally, I think we would be in better shape. Will we know? No. But 3 years from now, when Varandas is out of the club, I don't think he'll win the next elections. I don't think so. Now, Kevin, Sporting Portimonense.
Should be an interesting game to say the least. I'm saying 2-0 to Sporting. We're gonna come back with a bang.
Who scores?
I say Bruno Fernandes 1, Rafinha the other.
Okay, interesting. Patrick.
I'm going to go with 2-0 as well. I fancy a goal from Diaby and let's say Bastos meets the goals again.
Okay, and Chris.
I think we win 1-0. I think it's going to be a game similar to the Maritimo game. We're going to sweat it out to the end. But I mean, obviously, we dropped points to them before. They took points from Benfica as well. But I mean, it's a club that isn't exactly fighting for Europe or anything. It's a team that we should beat, especially at home. And I think the goal comes from a corner kick. Coates. It's been a while.
Okay, good.
Header.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think it'll be 2-1 because we love suffering. So 2-1, and I think it'll be a goal from Coates can play. He got a red card.
Matthew, he's going to play then. He'll score the header. Yeah. Corner kick. Set piece. We're not going to score from open play.
Yeah. I think Mache will score and Bas Dost. And that's it. 2-1 for Sporting because Portimonense, they lost their best player, Nakajima. They sold him, remember? Yeah. So that's why I think we'll win.
We are very optimistic considering what's happened the last 2 games. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, indeed. So that's it, guys. Anything else? Any alibis? No?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one more thing, just going back to that current system, just a quick point. With the older socios having more votes, it is a fundamentally stupid system. And it's exactly how in America we ended up with Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton obviously got more votes, but Donald Trump won states that ended up being worth more. So voters in 5 states ended up deciding an election when the other person got more votes. In this case, older people ended up putting a president in that obviously not necessarily younger people, but people who have been socios for less time, which technically would usually mean that they're younger. But I mean, a 50-year-old could have decided to become a socio or whatever, so not necessarily. But obviously, the people that have been socios for longer are typically older. So a bunch of old people decided who our president is, and in the United States, people in 5 states decided who our president is. So 1 person, 1 vote.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't see. I think in Portugal, this system is being used by Sporting, and I believe Benfica. Porto is 1 vote, and everybody else is the same way. It's a very dumb system because Benedict would have won. The one that the youth your age, because I am older than you guys. You guys voted for him. You saw something that other people didn't see. So anyway, we missed out on that, and I think in the long run, by Benedito staying in the back seat and observing the whole thing, if he decides to go again up for elections the next time, I think he'll win for sure. I have no doubts in my mind.
Bruno Carvalho lost the first time, but then he won the second time. So
indeed.
There's hope. There's hope.
Okay, guys, so it's a wrap. Thank you so much, Kevin, for accepting our invitation.
Oh, my pleasure.
And Chris, thank you once again. And Patrick, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Viva Sporting Clube Portugal.
Viva Sporting.